Have you ever dreamt of a world where houses are made of candy, and food rains from the sky? What if I told you such a place existed? But it wasn't the sweet fairy tale you imagined? Greetings everyone, today we're diving deep into the 18th century carnivals of Naples, Italy, where luxurious candy houses and palaces made of fine foods were not just for delight, but were stages for barbaric food wars orchestrated by the upper class. If you find this video interesting, please support us by hitting the like button. Now, let's get started. The story takes place in 18th century Italy, in the city that was then the Kingdom of Naples. A carnival was held every Sunday. When you hear the word carnival, you probably have an image of a festival of singing, dancing, and revelry. However, carnival originates from a tradition, primarily within Catholicism, that involves abstaining from meat consumption for a certain period, leading up to Easter, representing Christ's resurrection. Carnival is celebrated as a time to enjoy meat and other indulgences before this period of abstinence. Carnival is also known as Carnival of the Carnivals, in other words, a festival of thanksgiving for meat. Therefore, Carnival in Naples, a city of gastronomy, was crowded with not only Catholics, but also people who wanted to enjoy carnival delicacies. At the carnival, local fruits and vegetables were sold, as well as artisan breads, cheeses, pastries, and other delicacies. But there was something that made the carnival even more attractive. These were a kind of mobile food stall known as Cuccagna. These stalls did more than sell food. They were constructed to represent magical lands where food would fall from the sky, as depicted in famous European myths. These Cuccagnas, mobile food stalls, were lavishly decorated with an assortment of sumptuous foods, symbolizing the bountiful feast carts of mythical realms. These vibrant displays would have been a captivating sight during a carnival parade, drawing many to the promise of a gourmet festival. Bakers and cheesemakers from all over the city were preparing such mouth-watering Cuccagnas with their skills. The artisans would glamorize their stalls with their wares, and parade through the town to advertise the carnival. In this way, the artisans of the town sold their wares, which were then purchased by the residents for their enjoyment. Thus, the Cuccagna festival, which brought together delicious foods for carnival, was a peaceful celebration until one day. However, the festival underwent a significant change in 1734, when the 18-year-old Spanish prince, who would become Charles VII of Naples, ascended to the throne. Carlos III sought to demonstrate his wealth and power to the citizens of his new domain, Naples. He resolved to enhance the city's renowned Cuccagna festival, aiming to bring unparalleled excitement and prominence to the celebrations. He created a new type of Cuccagna that was different from the mobile stalls that had been used until then. He built houses of sweets, fruit towers, meat and cheese, castles, and other delicious buildings throughout the town square, where people could actually eat the food. A number of building-type Cuccagnas appeared in the town, all abundant with fine foodstuffs. This is also very fascinating. People in Naples at that time must have felt as if a magical land where food rained down from a myth had become a reality. Unfortunately, the new Cuccagna did not make the Neapolitan festivities any happier or more joyful. Instead, the previously peaceful Neapolitan Cuccagna festivals turned barbaric and ugly. To clarify, Carlos's innovation was introducing Cuccagnas that offered food completely free of charge, a departure from the previous approach where food was sold from stalls. The building-type Cuccagna built in the city was a free gift from the king to the town. Therefore, everyone could eat it without having to pay. It sounds more and more like a dream, doesn't it? But what do you think the poor and suffering people would do when something they could eat without having to pay for it appeared in their town? They would not just look at the food and think, "This looks so good." The impoverished populace rushed to the Cuccagna, desperate to obtain the food. Thus, the city of Naples, where the Cuccagna was located, was flooded with poor people. Hungry people flooded into the city of Naples in search of cooker shops. From Castel Nuovo on the seaside, cannons were fired to signal the start of the festivities and warn of the crowds pouring into the town. The sound must have been like a pistol signaling the start of a food fight. Hundreds of cavalrymen were deployed in the town square. to control the people who were running amok to get their hands on the food. But despite the security, the crowds of Cuccagna were desperate to get as much food as they could stuff into their pockets and mouths. Old men who staggered and fell down were trampled and crushed to death in the crowd. And then there were those who were watching this battle for food with joy and laughter. They were the wealthy people who did not have to fight for food. They were literally watching from the windows of the palaces and mansions surrounding the square, enjoying the commotion caused by the poor who gathered for the Cuccagna festival. The people risking their lives to fight over food was the most enjoyable and exciting spectacle for the wealthy. In other words, Cuccagna was not just a gift of food given by the king to the people, but a stage set for royalty and the wealthy to enjoy the spectacle of fighting for food. The royalty and the wealthy watched in amusement as people struggled for food in a desperate attempt to survive. Yes, it is disgusting. Moreover, the desire of those watching the food fight to see something more interesting escalated the Cuccagna festival into something more cruel. The bad taste of the onlookers led them to consider using live animals for the Cuccagna festival, in addition to bread and cheese, because they thought that the people would be more interested in seeing the food fight than in watching it. They were tired of watching the people fight over the food, so they decided to enjoy the bloody game of live animals. For example, live cattle were released into the city without being tied to a cord. People participating in the festival chased the bull with spears in their hands and fought each other to take the bull's life and get it. Live birds were also tied or nailed to the tops of trees. The tree to which the birds were tied was considered a Cuccagna tree, and its trunk was coated with oil. A dangerous game was played in which only the one who managed to climb the slippery tree could get the bird. Sometimes non-food items were also attached to the Cuccagna tree as merchandise, such as expensive suits or shoes. These were expensive suits, shoes, and other items that the poor could not normally afford. They served as game prizes for the wealthy and valuable loot for the impoverished. However, if they participated in dangerous tree climbing games in pursuit of those goods, they would naturally fall and injure or even die. Not only that, as I mentioned earlier, some people lost their lives when they were jostled by the rushing crowds. In addition, there was no end to the number of people who were killed or injured by knives used to cut off food or spears prepared to kill animals. The numerous hazards present at the Cuccagna festival posed life-threatening risks to its participants. In order to cope with this situation, the king came up with a countermeasure. In this case, normally, rules should be established to prevent casualties, such as limiting the number of participants and restricting the use of knives. However, the king did not take such measures. What the king did was to provide a bond for the widows and children of the men who were killed or injured at the Cuccagna festival. In other words, he was not trying to make the festival safe, but to find a way to keep it dangerous and keep the number of participants from decreasing. The idea was that if they died, the bereaved families would be paid a deposit, so that they could continue to fight for food in peace. Alcohol also played a role in the strange excitement of the cookers and festivals. The town even had a booze fountain. The fountain spewed out fine wines made in Italy. The all-you-can-drink wine fountain must have delighted the drinkers and caused even more commotion. Several such fountains existed, some of which were created to commemorate the birth of a prince. A wine fountain was created to celebrate the birth of a baby. And drunken adults would have made a big fuss fighting for food. That's quite something. And there's even a story about a pond made of beer. Did some people jump into the beer pond and swim in it? In any case, the people were not driven crazy by the huge amounts of alcohol and food that were poured into the festival. For the amusement of the royalty and the wealthy, people were tossed about, lost their pride, and sometimes even their lives because of these Cuccagna festivals. In today's context, such a festival would undoubtedly face significant criticism for animal cruelty and excessive food wastage. Despite these issues, the allure of the Cuccagna festival didn't fade in its time. Driven by the populace's desire for food, and the wealthy's penchant for spectacle. But all things must come to an end. The famine that struck Naples in 1764 brought the Cuccagna festival to an end. The famine caused the Cuccagna festival to be even more chaotic than usual, as the people were starving. Until then, the Cuccagna festivals had been orderly, with the people competing for food and following signals from the king to entertain the onlookers. However, the people who were facing a life-or-death situation due to famine did not follow the Ono's orders, but rushed to the Cuccagna and began to loot as they pleased. And the royalty and the wealthy people began to fear the people who no longer listened to them. They had enjoyed manipulating the poor and making them fight with the power of their wealth. But they felt that if they could not get their way, it would only be dangerous. Thus, the ill-tempered onlookers began to not engage in food fights. As a result, the Cuccagna festival faded from the stage of history. I believe that these festivals, where the affluent manipulated the destitute with food, turning their struggles into a spectacle, were distasteful. Yet, it's hard to deny the allure of such all-you-can-eat extravaganzas, echoes of which persist in modern times. The allure of such festivals is complex, drawing us in with the promise of abundance, yet the historical context reveals a darker, more complicated reality. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insightful content. Take care and see you in the next video. Goodbye.